Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to another professional match of StarCraft 2. Now, what I've got for you today is a very high level match of Zerg versus Protoss. However, most surprisingly, right, get this, we find ourselves on Stasis LE. So, this map has been around for a couple months right now, and I feel like I've casted a grand total of like 2, maybe 3 games on it at most. The vast majority of the pro gamers, other than Protoss maybe, end up vetoing this map just because it is very different than the other ladder maps that we have, and it's just not very common to see pro games on. Usually, pro gamers end up vetoing maps until they have a certain set of maps remaining for the series that they want to play, and usually Stasis doesn't make that cut. Now, ooh, looks like our Zerg player here in blue decided to go for the gold base first. I love it. Now, I recently made a video where I went over the upcoming balance changes to StarCraft 2, as well as the new ladder map pool for 1 versus 1 that will soon be happening in StarCraft as well. In case you want to watch that video, I'll post a link to it down below in the description of this one, because basically after just a couple of months, Stasis is gonna leave us once again. I know, there's like 2 sad people watching this right now. They're like, oh man, Stasis is my favorite map. They're Protoss players, by the way. But anyways, spawning here in the top left-hand corner of the map, playing with the blue Zerg drones and going for that gold base really greedily. We are currently looking inside of the main base of Impact. And his opponent, spawning in the top right-hand corner, playing with the red Protoss probes. He is none other than Parting. So here we have it. Now, this map is tricky. What you can do is send warp prisms and oracles and phoenixes and like, you know, tempests and stuff straight from the natural of the Protoss towards the natural of their opponent. I think that's one of the reasons why Impact decided to go for the gold base first, and obviously the fact that you get yourself a lot of juicy minerals really early on into the game as well. He's gonna be able to get that one up uncontested. Obviously, if there was like a, I don't know, a Forge First or something from Parting, which we have seen him do in the past, this would be absolutely game over already, but it's not the case, and Impact is gonna start bringing home those juicy golden minerals. He also did grab himself the expansion here rather early. Normally, Zerg players don't really take the third, or I guess this is now technically the third, right? They don't really grab the third hatchery until like 30 supply or so. In this case, Impact got it started way earlier. So his early game is gonna be mostly compromised of slow Zerglings here for the time being, and maybe a handful of queens. A couple of Lings though are gonna try and get in there, but the Stalker that was busy shooting away at the Overlord, well, look at that. The Zerglings are sacrificing themselves in favor of that Overlord. But regardless, the Stalker did not get the kill on the second Ling, and that means that this one will be able to find its way into the main base, and it scouts out that indeed it is gonna be a very quick Stargate. Nothing weird here for Parting whatsoever. He's got himself that gateway on the low ground, the quick expansion here as well, and he is gonna actually grab the double gases rather early on here, so we'll have to see what kind of plan he wants to go for in this match. Second Queen just about to join the third base as well. We do see the Spore Crawler coming up here in the main as well as in the natural. So I guess this is just going to be a solid, good old defense here for Impact. He's not going to put all of his eggs in one basket, but there's no denying that on this map, you can see, right, he started up these spores quite a bit earlier than you normally do as well, by like 15 seconds. On this map, the travel distance is just simply much shorter for air units. And immediately, well, Parting realized that his opponent scouted it, obviously. But immediately, the Oracle is gonna turn around upon seeing that there is gonna be more than enough defense. Now, ooh, okay. Oh, I was hoping for something like this to happen. So, looks like Parting wants to show us why a lot of players, in particular Zergs, do not want to play this map. Even though you can get yourself a gold base really nicely, like Impact has shown us, he is gonna go for that really quick fleet beacon, and I love this. We are just about to see some Tempest trouble. Tempests have this nasty tendency to have a lot of range. I personally love playing them whenever I play Protoss because they're just so much fun. Nowadays, in the new multiplayer balance patch, obviously, they are much faster than they once were, and it allows them to just be a lot more microable, I suppose. They still have a lot of range as well, so if you control them properly, you can actually deal a tremendous amount of damage in this area right over here, and that's already where we can see that Stargate rally point headed. He can start shooting away at these drones, and until they're there's like a group of Corruptors out or something along those lines, Impact is gonna have a very tough time defending against this kind of aggression. Only just now, though, is the lair coming up, which is the downside, obviously, of getting that really quick third hatchery. Impact is not gonna have the tech to deal with this, and the Tempest, which is basically one of the highest tech units for Protoss, is already out. Now, he is gonna show it, so Parting is immediately showing it, but look at that. They are perfectly capable of one-shotting drones. Now, I know the feels here, okay? Look, they outrange spores as well. I know the feeling that Impact is experiencing right now very well. This is the reason why I personally vetoed Stasis. I mean, I'm sure there's builds that you can learn to deal with this, but like, it's just so frustrating. It is just so annoying to deal with. Now, likewise, I also love playing this kind of stuff when I play Protoss. It's very dirty. It almost feels like cannon rushing your opponent in a way. But yeah, it's very, very strong and very, very powerful. And it's the reason why we usually don't see this map played at this level very often whatsoever. Now, I'm very curious to see what Impact is going to do. He is going to grab himself that Spire, so likely he is going to make the transition to Corruptors. But look, already, Parting is preparing for that in advance. He's gonna go for a bunch of those Void Rays, and that will allow him to counter these units accordingly already as well. Now, this has not been spotted by Zerg yet. I don't think. No, well, there's one Zergling sleeping on the job. Could have grabbed the Watchtower. It would have seen these Voids. But obviously, if there's one unit that's really, really good against Corruptors, it is gonna be Void Rays, especially when they have themselves that prismatic alignment. Now, the Queens are holding strong for now, right? But they're only really just buying time. Impact is losing a lot here. How many workers have gone down? It's 10 workers already. Obviously, a couple of Adepts could have done the same thing, though, so this hasn't really justified this tech just yet. But while this is going on, Parting is using this time that he created for himself to now transition towards a third Nexus as well. Still though, Impact not slowing down, grabbed himself that fourth hatchery now too, and he's gonna start counterattacking with a couple of his ground-based units as well. He's trying to combine the word roach and ground. Grouch. Rouches. Yeah, I was trying to combine two words at once, but here we go. Corruptors are out. Void Rays, though, already available. Ooh, that Oracle from earlier, very critical to keep that one alive. It ended up now, well, he's almost losing it right there. He ended up now getting himself that Revelation on the Corruptors to keep track of where they are located. And you can see with Prismatic Alignment on, these Void Rays are going to be able to shoo away these Corruptors just fine. At the same time, though, we see a couple Roaches here being a nuisance. This will at the very least distract a couple of these Void Rays, and it will also slow down the aggression here by these Tempests for a little while. They need the escort of the Void Rays at this point to stay alive, but mass Void Ray right now being produced. What a game already. I have no idea where this one is going to go, to be honest. Well, Oracle will go up in a big puff of green smoke. But I guess we will see that really heavy Stargate-based army. Now, usually, I like Void Rays if your opponent is going heavy Corruptor. If your opponent is not going for a focus on Corruptors, Void Rays kinda suck. I mean, Hydras are decently good against them, but in particular, Infestors. Ooh, he's gotta be careful. In particular, Infestors with their infested Marines, their infested Terrans, they are very solid when it comes to fighting these Void Rays. So I'm a little bit on the fence of this decision so far. Now, for the time being, though, Impact is just going to focus on more and more of these Corruptors. If he can actually pick up these Void Rays one by one, just like he's doing right now when there's no Prismatic Alignment, this can obviously clean up the Voids pretty easily, and that all of a sudden leaves these Tempests very, very vulnerable as well. Whenever the Corruptors do come home, you can see the Queen's already waiting with the Transfuse. And both players are now going to be allowed to transition towards a very mid-game focused army. Well, I say mid-game, right? But it almost seems as if Parting has decided to skip the mid-game altogether. He went early game and then straight to late game. Tempest into carriers right now as well. This is cool. I love this kind of stuff. So the thing is, I don't like playing against it when I play Zerg, but I do love seeing the creativity and the different playstyles, I suppose, that these maps bring. So look right here, right? The Oracle died. But he took the watchtower right here to get that big amount of vision, and therefore these Tempests can still shoot much further away than they can usually see. Really cool stuff. That's why you obviously want to keep that Oracle alive. Oh, once again though, that's a lot of Void Rays with their prismatic alignment. He may actually decide to go for a bit of a push. While this is all going on though, a big clump of Zerglings and Roaches is currently making its way towards the newly acquired 4th base here of Parting. Now there's already a shield battery as well as a photon cannon here ready to go. A couple of Zealots will also be warped in, but I do think that this base is going to be in a little bit of trouble. Keep in mind, the army that is available here for Parting is not very mobile, right? Stargate units are relatively slow. And this will certainly, at the very least, slow down the economy of our Protoss player for a little while. Alright, now while this was all going on, we do now indeed see that transition towards the Infestors. So Infested Terrans, they are extremely good when it comes to dealing with air units. Now obviously, when it comes to dealing with air units, they will be able to deal that damage, but they can also get stormed very easily. So this is very interesting dynamic between Infestors, Corruptors, and then the Stargate-based units and the High Templar. At this point, I was gonna say, we don't see the High Templar yet, but the Templar Archives is now being added on as well. I think this is actually a little bit later than you ideally wanted to, just because you need to save up quite a lot of energy. Without it though, these Tempests are gonna be in trouble, right? This Void Ray Tempest army is gonna be in a lot of trouble if it's just gonna go up against a bunch of Infested Terrans, because they will just get wrecked. In particular, if you get yourself, for example, right here, where is it? The Neural Parasite. So Impact is gonna be allowed to also take control of his opponent's units if he does so accordingly. But I guess at this point, Impact hasn't really shown the Infestors yet. For all that Parting knows right now, this could just be a Corruptor Zergling Roach-based army, right? So he's still quite heavily focused right now on Void Rays as well. Now, Carriers are here. Carriers, of course, very good. They're super tanky nowadays as well, and that's usually why Zerg players want to get themselves at least some of those Corruptors out. Corruptors very good in that regard, but all things considered, we are now transitioning towards a much later game. A lot of the games on Stasis do end much earlier. I think we're right now transitioning towards both players being able to dream up their perfect army. A Warp Prism is now also joining the fight here. Did he already get himself Storm? Not yet, actually. So he may actually just decide to go for a big push over here. That is indeed the case. A lot of Infested Terrans are dropped to the ground as well. I love the amount of Queens added into this mix. But you can see the Infested Terrans are just simply shooting down all of these little Interceptors. And that all of a sudden makes this pressure here capable with these carriers much, much less scary. Apparently one carrier did not quite get the recall. And that one is going to have to pay for that mistake with its life. But the majority of those Protoss players, or those Protoss units rather, did end up getting out of there without really any trouble. They're going to start rebuilding their Interceptors. Now, compared to the previous multiplayer balance patch, it used to be, I think, 6 seconds for an Interceptor to be built. Nowadays, the Interceptor build time is 11 seconds. So it takes quite a long time. They also don't deploy nearly as quickly as they used to back in the day. So it definitely does come down right now to Parting, getting a little bit of breathing room. And he's using that breathing room right now to recreate the Interceptors, but also to get himself an army of High Templar. Psionic Storm is going to finish in about a half minute or so from now, and I think that's going to be a much more sophisticated unit composition that's going to be much better against the majority of the things that this Zerg player has shown so far. Now, this is interesting. We see an Ultralisk Cavern now being produced here for Impact. What exactly is he going to do with that? Well, sometimes if your opponent is going very, very heavily on a carrier focus, you can use the Ultralisk to actually be the ones that take the damage from the Interceptors. And since Ultralisk have a ton of armor, they can actually tank a stupid amount of the Interceptors as well. Interceptors basically deal like a half damage, rather than like, I think their usual like 5 or 6 or 7 or so, I'm not entirely sure, but they deal a lot of damage when they're fully upgraded. And Ultras can neglect a lot of that as long as they are the ones that are taking the hurt. It is quite difficult though to get the Ultralisk in the front, just because on this map there's a lot of tight chokes. But you can see Impact right here is already using a lot of those Spore Crawlers right now as well to take control of some of those chokes as well. Apparently one Zealot though, valiantly holding the front right there, trying to get the Watchtower, slicing away at a couple of those creep tumors before it ended up going down. But you can see Impact is slowly and methodically making his way through the center of the map. Barding, though, has now secured himself 5 bases, and this is kind of where Protoss really shines. Not only does he have a stupid amount of production right now, he's gonna be able to mine a ton and put down a lot of, for example, these photon cannons as well. And this is where the Protoss army becomes very, very scary. Look at this. A mothership will soon be joining the fray too. Obviously, the cloaking alone is going to be super useful, but they have still got Time Warp, which now also reduces attack speed of a lot of those units. So it's quite interesting to see where this one is going to go. Also, pretty interesting, Impact still has a lot of roaches out. I'm always, whenever I play Zerg, I'm always a little bit worried about keeping a big clump of roaches out at this point in the game, because they soak up 30 supply. Impact is maxed out right now. He can replace them with much stronger units that can actually shoot up. But he has still decided to leave some of that supply count dedicated to roaches, just so he can continuously threaten these counterattacks. The thing is, though, this is a maxed out Protoss army going up against a much, much smaller Zerg base force here instead. There we go. Celtic Storms are being used on top of all of those infested Terrans. As soon as that happened, immediately new infested eggs were thrown forward as well. Great fungal growths here. The Corruptors are now going to be able to go to town on a lot of these units as well. They're going to start target firing down the mothership. The mothership will end up falling only about 30 seconds or so after it spawned, and Impact absolutely smashed the engagement. Right now, Vipers, are you looking to get the yank? Looks like they are not going to be able to do so just yet, and he actually has to be careful. You do not want to lose these Vipers for free. But that was a beautiful engagement there by Impact, showing us how to micro that army. And while obviously it's very difficult to do so, he just did so absolutely perfectly. Look at that. He's now going to start reinforcing this army with additional infestors, 11 more coming up, as well as a couple Ultralisk. Keep in mind, the majority of the High Templar there ended up going down. They either morphed themselves into Archons or they just simply ended up dying, which is really, really solid here for Impact. So beautiful engagement there by the Zerg. That's the kind of stuff that I wish I was able to do, man. I play a lot of ZVP, and let me tell you, when your army composition is based around Infestors, Corruptors, and Queens, and then you also add like Vipers and Spore Crawlers into the mix, the micro that you need is so very difficult. It is so easy for your entire army to just simply get stormed. And also, he still had a lot of that supply caught up in roaches, so that wasn't even like a maxed out Zerg army when you think about it. Really, really well done there by Impact, showing us how to do it. This is one of the reasons why the late game of ZVP at this level, ooh, nicely puked right there, is pretty heavily in favor of Zerg, just because their control at this level is very solid as well. But, I mean, if you're like your regular run-of-the-mill Protoss or Zerg player rather on the ladder, I'm sure we've all experienced that pain, right? Where Protoss manages to max out and they just simply walk over you and you're like, well, I tried my best. That was kind of that. I really did try, but Protoss just simply has too much stuff. Well, speaking of too much stuff, Barding is still doing an excellent job, right? Sure, he ended up taking a lot of damage there, but he still has the economy to max out. And Protoss armies are always capable of winning fights when they are maxed out. Some other races, they have a harder time getting into this scenario. Apparently Impact, though, is starting to feel a little confident right now, but he's still going up against a 200 Protoss army here in just a second. Well, he's not quite maxed out yet, but he's still capable of maxing out, rather. Yeah, there we go. He's just simply gonna go for another carrier here. Not really rushing it out. You can see, like, he's able to just simply spend his money here and max out immediately if he just build a bunch of Zealots. But he's waiting for that perfect unit composition instead. And usually, it's the ones with the most lasers and, like, sparkles, I suppose, that end up dealing the most damage. Usually, it's the Protoss units that have the highest gas cost that are the most popular at this point in the game. Mineral-wise, usually that will be dumped on, like, a bunch of shield batteries and then photon cannons as well. It's really a gas-heavy army that you're looking for right now. Alrighty. Another base will be taken here in the bottom right-hand as well. I think that's what that Roach force was meant to do earlier, but the Roaches right now are gone. And you can see it's mostly just an army that is dedicated to killing these air units from Protoss. Man, it feels like we're waiting right now for one big clash. You're feeling it as well? This is when the game becomes really tense for me. Because I have no idea who's gonna win the next engagement. It could really go either way. It comes down to the control on both sides. High Templar perfectly capable of obviously shutting down a lot of these Zerg spellcasters as well. And that's like the majority of the Zerg army right now. Ooh, nice yanks there. Look at that. Beautiful move. That is gonna get rid of all of those pesky, what are they called? Tempests that were annoying earlier on into the game. At this point, I don't really know exactly if Parting cares, because he's just immediately replacing it with, once again, more and more carriers, as well as another Void Ray. One Ultra desperately wanted to show itself as well. It was produced earlier, but yeah, it was taking a little bit too much supply there as well. And instead, we see now more and more Vipers coming out to replace its kind. It's a little bit sad. There's still a couple of them available, though. 3 of them, but I guess 4 was just a little too much. You can see that both players have played this kind of stuff 1,000 times as well. Well, here we go. Infested Terrans will be raining forward here almost immediately. I'm a little surprised he hasn't decided to, like... Ooh, actually, hold that thought. He hasn't decided to, oh my god, what a sick fight already. But he hasn't decided to burrow those Infestors. Well, most of the Infested Terrans, though, are gone right now. Quite a lot of Infestors also ended up finding their grave there. And I think all of the Protoss units are still alive, right? Except for, obviously, that Mothership. The Mothership got stormed and wrecked and, you know, it took a lot of damage there in just a couple seconds. But this is still a scary, scary Protoss army, though. Obviously, the Infestors do take a little while before they accumulate their energy once again, but here we go. Big fight happening. Immediately, the Corruptors are trying to target fire down as many of these carriers as they possibly can. All of the Infested Terrans are shooting down as many of the Interceptors as possible as well, but Prismatic Alignment has been activated. You can see this Protoss army from Parting is trading absolutely brilliantly. Great storms there by our Protoss as well, really slowing down the advancement of that Zerg army. There are still a lot of those Spore Crawlers underneath as well, but the carriers are slowly but surely and steadily rebuilding their interceptor count. A lot of the interceptors did end up going down. The Ultralisk now trying to pick up some of those Archons as well, but they're not quite managing to do so. And a lot of that Zerg army did end up getting smashed. This is the time when some of that Protoss army will be replenished with Zealots as well. I think this is a great moment, actually, where Parting could actually even try and move across the map and potentially deal the killing blow. Obviously, it's a little early to call that, but this definitely does have that potential. I love this small little hit squad, though, of Corruptors. They ended up getting one of those carriers for the trouble. Second one now also going down. And I think this is actually a really solid position here for Parting. That fight there, while it looked really good for Zerg initially, those storms and those tight choke points just simply deal so much damage. The Archons underneath and then the Prismatic Alignment to clean the rest of it up, while all of the Zerg army is distracted, fighting most of those Interceptors. That was really well done there by Parting. Really, really slowly and patiently waiting as well, right? He wanted to fight the Zerg, but he didn't want to do so right on top of a lot of those Spore Crawlers, and instead wanted to fight with a lot of those Photon Cannons in the mix as well. At the same time, though, big set of Zerglings trying to make their way towards the Protoss bases. Looks like they successfully managed to do so. Some of this Protoss army actually in the middle of the map now also distracted. It did not continue pushing. The Mothership is actually going to be the one tasked with killing some of these links, and it successfully managed to pull that off as well. Hold that thought, though, because once again, a really big push is happening right here in the center of the map. There's no Vipers available here. If you could yank some of these Protoss units backwards, that would be absolutely humongous. A lot of the Ultras now also stuck behind the Infested Terrans, which is not necessarily a bad idea, but this is still a lot of Protoss reinforcements right now coming in. Parting, though, now reinforcing with Stalkers, which is usually a bit of a scary moment. You don't really want to reinforce with Stalkers at this point in the game if you cannot avoid it. This might just be in a response to all of these Corruptors, as well as these Ultras. A lot of the Archons in the front right now tanking a lot of the damage, and that does mean that Parting is the one who obtains the victory. What a sick match. That was really cool. Even though the early game was a little tricky there for Impact, and he ended up taking quite a lot of damage there from those Tempests, all things considered, he managed to transition towards the late game, where Parting's control was just simply a little bit better. He was more patient, he was waiting until the perfect moment, and then he took that big fight. And impact-wise, still did have himself a lot of mining bases. You can see that supply count at the bottom of the screen. It was just simply not enough. 74 supply here for Impact versus 164 from Protoss. I hope you enjoyed watching this game. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. A special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile alright, and I will see you once again in the next one.